So hello everyone, my name is Jeff, this is Fergal. I wanted to introduce you to this practical philosophy. I guess we're going to call it the State of the Union address, but pretty much the reason we wanted to do these kind of monthly videos, podcasts type of things, just updates, is because we've seen a lot of growth in the last little while of the club. We've been doing it for a while, but now we've seen more and more of these clubs grow. So I just wanted to kind of put these together where each month I'll sit down with one of the founders, one of the people who are kind of team leaders, and see what practical philosophy means for them. Just because essentially we've built this community in such a way where we can kind of just sit down, have a long conversation, a deep conversation, get to know other deep thinkers. But ideally, in my personal opinion, there would be no structure at all. But then as we've seen it grow and grow, we're realizing we have to kind of add a little bit more structure into it. So those kind of things mean like we have a website with a more consistent message. And then we also, at the beginning of every kind of discussion group, we have sort of our values and what practical philosophy is, as well as guidelines. Because ideally, for me, I would have rather not had any guidelines. But then as we've grown, and even if a group gets, say, 20 people, and you have to kind of start splitting into groups just so that we can kind of maintain that conversational direction, it's something where more rules kind of need to be in place as we've seen problems kind of happen. So we've just sort of come up with a few guidelines over the course of doing this again and again and again every week, kind of seeing new things crop up. Say, for example, someone's trauma dumping and it's like making the group uncomfortable. We had to kind of put in a guideline for that. Or say someone hears something that they don't want to hear or that they don't agree with, and then they essentially they get triggered and things like that, and then it starts arguments and things. And so pretty much what we've been doing is just piece by piece improving, tweaking, playing around with it. And now practical philosophy is at a point where a lot of the people who are attending have never met me nor Fergal, and we started this in Playa del Carmen in Mexico at the end of 2021. And so we've been doing it for a long time. And I wanted to just kind of make these sort of videos here once a month just to kind of explain. They're going to be very short, well, not very short, but like 15, 25 minutes just to kind of let you guys know, I guess, generally what it is that we're trying to do here. And just so that kind of everyone's on the same page. And then also share cool updates that we have. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is just a couple different updates and I guess what practical philosophy means to Fergal, mostly. Because I would love to, next month chat with someone from the Canada group. We're currently in Tokyo, by the way. And so, just kind of go around and speak with one of the founders of this kind of community that we have, and just kind of hear what it means to them. Because it's going to be different for every person, essentially, but we're trying to keep it as consistent as we possibly can, as in line with kind of one message. But also, some people get community out of it. Some people get critical thinking out of it. Some people get the ability to communicate out of it. So it's like what someone mostly gets out of these meetups is going to be different for each person, right? So that's my spiel for now. Updates that we have that I wanted to share with you. So it's currently is July 27th today, and updates have been crazy. So in the last couple months, we've had, I guess, just this year, general 2024. We started this year with practical philosophy in Playa del Carmen in Mexico, in Hamilton in Ontario, and then in Valencia in Spain. So those are the three ones that we've had so far. And since this year has happened, we've opened one up in Mexico City, Mexico, Bali, Indonesia. We just opened a new one in Tokyo. That's what me and Fergal are doing here. We've been hosting one here for about 2 months now. Then we've had as well Sofia, Bulgaria just opened up. Vancouver in Canada is actually a very big one as well. Next week we have opening up, or actually tomorrow in Manila in Philippines. One's opening there, and then the following week Köln in Germany is going to be hosting their first one as well. So pretty much, and we're in talk with other people as well to kind of open some of these up. But I wanted to just let you know that's sort of the updates thus far that we have. Beyond that, let us dive into kind of our vision and our roadmap, and I would love to hear from our boy Fergal about what he thinks of philosophy.
I guess this is something we've been talking about a lot, in the sense that when it was just one philosophy club, it's easy to sort of tell all the other group leaders, okay, this is what's going to happen. However, now we haven't even met some people that are starting a philosophy club, which is amazing. But it's like, how do we keep a consistent experience across all of them? So, Jeff and myself included don't like to be too structured. But then as we grow, we're kind of more like an organization, like we're a registered nonprofit now as well. And it's, how do you keep a consistent experience across every single club? And I guess that comes with, more responsibility for team leaders, in that we have consistent opening speeches or closing speeches. The structure is always the same, and people are kind of clear on what the vision is and what the values are, so that, we're kind of spreading that across each philosophy club. And I think that's really what helps it grow. So I guess, yeah, that's why we're doing this. And really, Jeff is thinking about this all the time. Like, people have no idea, but like, all Jeff does is like work and then think about philosophy club and like what the value should be and where it should go and like the systems and things like that. And we've talked about them a lot over the years, but I guess it's like how much you share with everybody else. And as it grows, I think there needs to be anybody that's sort of managing a group, they need to be aware of that as well. And then obviously, just when people can get behind a vision and really see, okay, this is going to make the world a better place, that needs to be shared with people. There's all these visions that Jeff has that we haven't really maybe shared with everybody and sort of reminded people each week. So I think that's a big, important part of this.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the visions that we don't share with people? Yeah.
I guess just where we're going. Like, a lot of people aren't even aware that there's multiple other clubs, even though it is in a WhatsApp community. No one knows, okay, there's like, until this video basically, that there's whatever, like 5-6 new ones this week. Like we recently hit over 100 people a week across all clubs, and that's been like 2 or 3 weeks in a row now. And then just, I guess, being very clear on what the vision is. Me and Jeff kind of differ on what we think the vision is, but I think some core ones were always that it was to have a conversation in an alcohol-free environment, because every other meetup seems to be around drinking. And I think encouraging people to socialize without alcohol brings out more confidence in people. Maybe initially they're more stifled, but longer term, they become more confident in themselves because they don't need to rely on a crutch. So I think that's a great thing. I think another great thing is just, you can discuss a difficult topic. Maybe, like, we've done topics like feminism, or I don't know, what are some other controversial ones we've had?
Toxic masculinity. We wanted to do racism recently. Religion, dogma, that was an interesting one.
Any of these ones where if you look at the media, you're given a very extreme perspective from either the left or the right side of that. And I think the whole point is we all come together, no one gets triggered, and then shares their perspective in a nuanced way. And if people can use nuance to sort of take the arguments on each side and make their own, have their own perspective of what the situation actually is, I think society is a better place. And I guess for me, that's one of the biggest things this is striving for, is giving people more meaningful connections, building a community where everybody's kind of on the same page. And even if people have strong disagreements, like myself and Jeff don't agree with everything, like we have disagreements on things, but we can hold those and find the nuance. And I think that's sorely lacking in society, and something that just really will make a big difference if people can do that.
Yeah, and that's something as well with the setting the vision. It's like, how much do you share with people? Because there's multiple different layers of it. So there's sort of like even just philosophy in general. Like, why are we calling this philosophy club when we don't study the text? And for me, it's like a very important aspect is like the whole reason we started it was because I just know a lot about Stoicism. And I just picked philosophy at random as the opening thing. Like, philosophical entrepreneurship was the first one, but it was just because we wanted a space where people could kind of just sort of bounce ideas off of each other. But then it's sort of like on the upper level, it's like, what are we like? Why, like, philosophy in general? I think what we're doing is true philosophy, because it stands for the love of wisdom. Philosophy is like Greek for love of wisdom, and so it's very interesting to me that over the years, like over the centuries, a modern philosopher is seen as some nerd who's very pretentious and he's like, I study philosophy at university, da da da. But it's like, for me, anyone can be a philosopher, and I really see the value in sort of bringing that like level of I guess pretentiousness or like bringing philosophy out of academia, because it didn't necessarily need to go there to begin with. And like if you go through the history, it's like, you know, there was Xenophon and Plato, who were the two main proteges of Socrates, and Xenophon went down like the path of action, whereas Plato went down the path of academia, and then his student Aristotle as well, and they kind of like built the academy and then the lyceum. And so philosophy kind of went down that academic road. But for me, and this is why we call it practical philosophy, is it's meant to be used in real life. So in my opinion, it's like if you have a philosophy of life and it doesn't have anything to do with actual working in reality, then it's kind of useless and it's sort of dumb. And so it's like, what can we take from our experiences and from our lived wisdom, and then kind of like bring that into a group and then sort of discuss it and sort of just like figure it out. And much like Fergal said, I just really like the idea that we can have these conversations where we don't agree with the idea that people say, but you're actually able to kind of like find a middle ground. And you'll see that, you know, like in Canada, it's very political and there's right and versus left everywhere. Everyone's like the enemy of everyone. You're either pro-Trump or you're pro-Trudeau or Biden or whatever it is. And it's not very healthy, because then when you get to it, you like, and you actually start breaking things down, it's like you kind of realize you guys are all pretty well on the same page. It's just like the vocabulary is pretty much different, but you generally want the same thing, and you're actually involved with those people, and you're not in an echo chamber. And because you're not in an echo chamber, number one, you need to hear new perspectives. Number two, you need to learn how to communicate your idea to someone who will generally disagree with you. And so like, how can you guys kind of actually understand what you're saying? And I think, yeah, like the world sort of needs more of that. And I think as well, I think people are craving it, because we just sort of started this. And, you know, there were a lot of difficulties kind of as we first began it. But then it's like, it's kind of weird, because it's like, who's coming to a philosophy club, you know? Like, you wouldn't have expected that we have like more than 100 people across the globe kind of all coming together and talking about one thing. So it was like pretty cool in that sense, but it's unexpected at the same time. But I feel, especially post-pandemic, people don't really have people are like very needing these, or want and craving these deep conversations. And we and our friend group, we have these all the time. Like we have to like stop ourselves from doing deep, pretty much philosophy clubs, right? We do it constantly, to the point that it's like a detriment on our life, because like we're constantly just like, oh look, you know, like yap sessions constantly. But other people, you know, like they'll kind of come and they're like, oh, like this is what I've been missing. And it's like, the closer that we can come to each group being like those summer nights in like your friend's backyard where you're crowded around a table and you're just yapping and having like a deep talk about life, like the closer we can come to getting that every week, that's that good stuff, you know. Not that's like that good stuff.
Backyard conversation, yeah. Or the parked car conversation that everybody has.
Mm-hmm. And like schedule that in. It's like once a week you get to like try to find something where it does that. And then it's like, the cool part about it is, you know, like we're about to be in like 10 different countries, and it's like hundreds of people are going to be having that same conversation over the course of the week, and like all that mental energy and spiritual energy is going in that direction. I think that's pretty cool. So
if we are sort of to do like bullet points of like what are the core values that we want to share across each club as like a cohesive like value, what would you say they are?
I would say it would mostly be like open mind and open dialogue, like no dogma, always just exploring everything with like, you know, I guess like taking a step back from it, taking yourself out of it so you can look at something as it is. I would say that would be one, like no dogma, open communication, critical thinking and discernment. That's sort of a big one. And then, yeah, I love the idea of honesty and authenticity. And honesty especially because it's like no one really says what they think, and maybe they don't even know what they think, but it's like this is an area where you can kind of put it on the table and like, let's actually look at it and not get offended by it. Let's actually explore it and see if it's worth kind of continuing. So yeah, those are just sort of ones that I believe. But
I think that's a key one. Is like a lot of the time people have come up with their own ideas, but they were never given the opportunity to share them. And a big part of it is, wow, like someone actually listened to me and sort of cared about my perspective is another reason why I think a lot of people come back, because it's like, oh, we get to share these like deeper parts of ourselves that, you know, a lot of conversation normally is just quite surface level if you go out in public, you know, outside of your core social circle. So I think that's a big one. Like in Japan, it's kind of different. You see cultural differences. They're like, oh, as a woman, like people are listening to me. We're like, oh, wow, like you guys need this. So yeah, I think just for me, if I was to think about what are the core values, I think it being in like an alcohol-free environment, finding nuance and balance on contentious issues is a big one. I think just building a strong community of people who are like-minded, or even if they're not like-minded, that they can sort of, you know, coexist together peacefully is very important. And then just maybe each person grows. I think maybe another value for me is it really helps people become better speakers. Like it kind of snuck up on us, but we've done, I don't know, 100 plus of these, maybe more, I don't even know. Like I kind of lost count, but we both have discussed how we're just better at putting our thoughts into words and approaching a difficult conversation in a nuanced way without, when I first would discuss a more contentious issue, I think I'd feel a little bit more nervous or, activated about it. Now I'm very calm about that. And I think that's been a very good one. And then another value is it's kind of helping people be leaders. You know, you can help moderate a group of people. And that's a really valuable skill to develop in yourself. And that leads to a better society. And then, I guess those are my main ones. Also on the public speaking, just the closing speeches at the end of each philosophy session, where you share what your group, if you're the group leader, you share what your findings from your group, if any. And just doing that in front of, say, it's like 20 to 50 people each week, my public speaking improved a lot. So kind of fostering growth in people, I guess, is how you would summarize what I just said there.
Yeah, I guess as well, one final thing is in just the community aspect, like philosophy, naming something after philosophy. You know, someone in the Vancouver group came, he's like, you're very brave for naming it that, you know, because a lot of people, when they see philosophy, they immediately check out because they're known as nerds, and philosophy is this nerdy subject. But if you actually like dive into it, philosophy is one of the coolest things. Like personally, I think it's one of the coolest things. But so it doesn't necessarily need to be nerdy, but it's like it does have this weird thing where if someone is willing to come to one of these events and they see practical philosophy, deep conversation, they want to come to it, they're generally going to be a very cool person. And some of the people that I've met through running these philosophy clubs, it's like, damn, I have a very legitimate social circle of people that I just love to talk with and that I get to have deep conversations with, and not necessarily in the actual like the weekly meetups, but it's like, damn, like this is a fantastic human being. So I think it's beneficial in that sense as well.
So I guess moving on then to vision and sort of a roadmap for the future, like where do we see this going? Like how will that play out, do you think?
Yeah, so right now, I think what we're trying to do at the moment is just sort of get a lot more consistency with the direction, or what one of these meetups looks like, with the main idea being we're hoping to just facilitate a deep conversation. But then like how do we build in like a consistent experience across multiple countries, multiple different cultures, multiple different types of people, things like that. So what we've been sort of working on is like a standardization where we can kind of at the beginning of every meetup we have the document with like what we're about, what our guidelines are, and then just like the general here's how it works, just so that we're communicating at every step of the way. And this is something as well you learn as we've been doing this, is like communication, just super important. And we always take for granted these communication, like just communicate very simple things because they may not be super simple to you, or they may be obvious to you, but you don't know it. And you don't know like what other people know or don't know. So we've just been working on like having this consistent aspect of like every every week we kind of meet and we give the same introductory talk, just so that people, here's the guidelines, there's no side talking, like one conversation at a time, being aware of how much you're talking and making sure everyone else is sharing as well, to just not get offended if you hear an opinion that is contrary to what you believe, and actually let's actually dissect that idea versus dissect that person. Let's not attack that person for that, and just sort of like adding in these guidelines, which they seem fairly obvious, but at scale it's actually like, well, let's actually like say this out loud, just so that we all have like a consistent thing. And then beyond that, we've got the with like just the ending as well. So sort of concluding, kind of bringing it together. If there's multiple groups, kind of bring it together just for a quick conclusion, where it's not going to be, you're trying to say every single point of the meeting, and just kind of reminding everyone that a lot of the ways that we kind of grow these are through meetup.com. So if at the end of every meeting, if you have a meetup that brought a lot of people in there, if you could just kind of ask and say, hey, is it possible that if you like this, you could give us a 5-star review, because it helps with the algorithm. And so that would be another thing. And then as well with the donations, kind of moving towards that, because if we can sort of start asking for donations, and I know some of the clubs ask for donations, and because we have sort of spaces that cost money, right? And sort of, the meetup costs money, and then sort of the more, if we can kind of support this just with like a couple dollars here and there, just to kind of, if we have an established club, be able to fund sort of, the meeting place, potentially getting food, things like that, as well as like promotional purposes, like running ads for the clubs, things of that nature. And then we can kind of start helping to open more of these, right? So example would be like Meetup. Each Meetup account is like $30 or something a month, whatever it is. It's like, as we open more of these, like each thing needs we kind of have to keep opening more and more of these Meetup accounts, which is fine. And it's just sort of
it's a thing where we never wanted to take money. We wanted just it to be free. Mm-hmm. But then this is one of these things, as you try and scale out and actually grow it so it can be this big international thing, it requires money. Right now Jeff just pays for a lot of these, and it's based on donations, but at scale, at a certain point, you just create a big liability. And I think it's hard for us as well to ask for money, because we didn't really want to do it. But I think it's something that we have to sort of build into each closing speech, is explaining the vision of, what this is going to do, where we're going with this, why we're even collecting money in the first place. And I think on new clubs, maybe we don't collect any money up till like, I don't know, there's consistently like 10 people coming every week on average. Mm-hmm. We need some level of critical mass. And then after that, you collect money and they support the new clubs. Because a new club is very fragile. It takes a lot of time. Like, Tokyo, we had one where it was like, I don't know, 23 people or something. And then another one where it was like 5-6 people. It's variable. So the early days are harder. So you don't put too much friction there at the beginning. And I guess that's something we need to put into like a system for these. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, when everybody's on a high, just explaining, how it helps and the vision of where we're going, I think it gets people excited. And I think when people feel a part of that growth as well, which everybody does, anybody who's involved with practical philosophy now, they see the vision, but maybe newer people don't. I think it's on us to really share, okay, this is where we're going, and this can really make a huge, this is a grassroots campaign that can make a huge difference in the world. And we want everybody to be a part of it. People can lend their skills when they can. If we ever need help with marketing or help with, web development or just management, we have so many smart people in the community that can help. And I think as we grow, sort of calling on these types of people to help us is another great thing to remind people at the end of every session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's something, as well too. One of the aspects of it that is difficult to kind of share, of like the vision, is a lot of it is just kind of intangibles, So it's like a thing where you most people, they come to it, they're like, this is what I was missing in my life, or like I've been looking for this for a long time. But then it's always we've been doing this for almost 3 years, and it's actually been pretty difficult to kind of figure out what that thing was that they were looking for. And it's just kind of like the thought is just like, well, just come experience it and you'll see. And that's sort of, just by going off vibes, that's not the best way to run an organization.
Yeah, Jeff wants to do a lot more vibes. I often tend to be a little bit more like structured, but there's a balance there.
There's a balance there,
for sure. Because one thing we've been looking at a lot now is, as more and more, Jeff made the website recently, and you can, request to start your own practical philosophy club, and Jeff will interview all these people and sort of see if they would be a good leader and manager for that club. And in that we need to make sure there's a good structure that they can sort of follow. But I think there's so many ways this can go, and I think it's important even in a video like this to sort of explain where that can go. For example, in Europe, a lot of universities have societies. They could be around philosophy, or I don't know. There's like in the university I went to in Ireland, there was societies for everything, for like surfing or like philosophy, finance, business, anything. I think, practical philosophy is a society, like Practical Philosophy Club or Practical Philosophy Society and all these different universities. I think encouraging younger people who are often very, in universities, there tend to be a lot of discussion about contentious social issues. And this is like a great way, instead of, going rioting in the streets, you discuss the issue and cancel people on Twitter. You come to some sort of maybe conclusion, or at least you find some kind of middle ground in a problem. So I think encouraging, people in university age or even high school age is amazing. And then on the other end of that, in like corporate wellness programs, or maybe just people want to connect more with their coworkers. Like Jeff gave a speech in Houston, Texas before, and he was talking about basically the Roman Empire, but no one was really responding very well. But then we basically did a practical philosophy for these people, and they were like, oh, I never knew this about you. And they're coworkers who worked together for like 5 to 10 years. So I think it's just super valuable, but unless we kind of share this is what we're trying to achieve, I think we don't get the same growth.
So essentially that is what we're looking to kind of do. We're sort of developing it as we go. Again, we didn't start this with structure. We tried to have no structure, and so we're starting like as we kind of build the roadmap, as we start to sort of build the vision and things like that. It's going to be sort of slowly and surely developing, just improving and figuring out the organizational structure stronger. So by no means are we perfect, but we are working at this consistently. There's a lot of mental energy that goes into sort of us just figuring it out and like figuring it out together, and sort of helping to build a community that is focused on open discussion, open communication, and ideally nuanced thinking, discernment, and sort of critical thinking. And so learning how to communicate with each other and build a community based on that. So that's what we're focused on. And I think we are getting a little long in the tooth here on this discussion. So we will end it here. Hope you enjoyed it.